In the brutal winter of 1804, on the windswept northern plains, while early European explorers huddled shivering inside quickly built wooden forts, the Native American tribes of the region did something that baffled the newcomers. They didn't build towering walls to fight the cold. They dug down, disappearing into the frozen earth. How exactly did these indigenous cultures survive for thousands of years in extreme winter conditions without a single piece of modern heating technology? Take a Mandan matriarch. Let's call her Ma Ne. She wasn't just a resident of her village. In her culture, women were the owners, the architects, and the master builders. She oversaw her family with quiet, unshakable authority. Her hands were calloused from decades of weaving willow and packing clay. She carried the architectural legacy of her ancestors, a heavy responsibility etched into the lines of her face. Her grandchild, wrapped firmly in a buffalo robe, watched her every move, while European traders dragged thin pine logs to build square, drafty cabins. Ma Ne and her sisters engaged in a strange, monumental task. They marked a perfect circle in the soil, spanning 40 feet across. They excavated a deep basin. Then they hauled massive cottonwood trunks, weighing hundreds of pounds, to form a skeleton. Over this, they wove an intricate web of willow branches. Finally, they did the unthinkable. They buried the entire structure under feet of heavy, dense prairie earth and sod. It didn't look like a house. It looked like a natural hump in the landscape. A French-Canadian fur trader named Jacques Leroux stood a few yards away, shaking his head. He was a practical man, a carpenter by trade. "It is a grave," Leroux muttered to his men. "They are building a tomb of mud. The roof will eventually collapse, or the dampness will rot their bones." He mockingly called it the dirt mound. The traders laughed from the perceived safety of their timber-framed walls. Ma Ne heard the laughter. She didn't look up. She didn't explain herself. She packed another thick layer of clay around the central smoke hole. Her silence carried thousands of years of engineering. Ma Ne had learned this from her mother, who learned it from hers. The knowledge wasn't just practical, it was profound physics. Their entire design was based on one simple truth: the cold seeks the surface, but the earth holds the memory of the sun. By utilizing the ground's immense thermal mass, temperatures a few feet below the surface remained incredibly stable year-round. They weren't fighting the winter. They were putting the earth between themselves and the cold. The preparation was grueling. Every log had to be perfectly aligned. Not only did these heavy beams support tons of soil, but they also held deep spiritual meaning, representing the pillars of their creation myth, architecture that fulfills both practical and cultural functions. A ventilation tunnel was dug at the entrance, angling precisely to capture fresh air while blocking bitter drafts. Every seam mattered. Every handful of grass mattered. It was a meditative, exhausting process of turning the landscape itself into a shield. In late autumn, a localized frost heaved the soil. A section near the entrance cracked, sending a sharp, icy draft directly toward the central fire pit. Leroux walked by, noticing the sudden chill in the entryway. "The mud fails," he whispered. Ma Ne didn't argue. She calmly directed the women to build a woven wooden baffle, a specialized windscreen, just inside the tunnel. It redirected the cold air downward to feed the fire, creating a thermal cycle that pushed warm air up and out the roof opening. It provided oxygen and distributed heat perfectly. The system never broke. The setback just made the circulation stronger. An old, weathered trapper who had lived in the territory for 30 years, stopped by the village. He didn't laugh like the young traders. He stood beside Mahne's lodge, placed his bare hand against the packed earth roof, and felt the faint, steady pulse of heat radiating from beneath. He looked at the square wooden cabins down by the river, then back at the earth lodge. He nodded silently and walked away without looking back. By January, the air changed. It wasn't just cold, it was predatory. The plains wildlife vanished. The wind died completely, leaving a heavy, terrifying silence. The sky turned the color of bruised iron. The blizzard wasn't just coming, it was gathering. Mahne checked the baffle one last time, not out of fear, out of precision. When the storm hit, it was a whiteout of unimaginable violence. Wind howled at 60 miles per hour, dropping the temperature to a deadly 40 degrees below zero. Inside Leroux's wooden cabin, it was a nightmare. The freezing wind sliced through the chinking. Frost formed thick on the inside of his walls. They burned through endless cords of wood, but the heat instantly escaped. Leroux shivered in the dark, the temperature inside hovering at a miserable 38 degrees. Just a few hundred yards away, Mahne sat in her earth lodge. The thick earthen construction absorbed the wind's fury. The immense thermal mass of the soil, heated slowly by the central fire, radiated a deep, comforting warmth. The temperature inside held steady at an astonishing 65 degrees. The fire consumed very little wood. The air circulated brilliantly, drawing fresh oxygen from the tunnel while the smoke vented silently into the blizzard. While the traders fought for survival, Mahne's family slept peacefully. 3 days later, the storm broke. The landscape was a silent sea of blinding white. Leroux kicked his frozen door open, half-starved and trembling. He looked toward the Native American village, expecting tragedy. Instead, he saw the earth lodges perfectly intact, blending seamlessly into the snowdrifts. Tiny plumes of smoke rising peacefully into the clear blue sky. Leroux walked up to the entrance of Mahne's lodge, felt the blast of warm air hit his frostbitten face, and hung his head. "I was wrong," he whispered. This wasn't an isolated occurrence. Deep in the plateau region, indigenous peoples independently built ingenious pit houses. Down in the unforgiving Southwest, cultures integrated their homes perfectly into the thermal mass of stone cliffs and mesas. Across the globe, similar underground concepts emerged independently. It was a universal architectural realization.